Like, isn't that the goal? Eat as much as I can and still stay in shape. That would be 2,100 calories across a whole week, right? Hiya and welcome back to my channel Heya.fit here, and I hope you guys are all doing well. So in today's video I wanted to give you guys my top tips on simple changes that you can make throughout your day to make your weight loss journey easier that does not involve tracking. So I know that a lot of you guys firstly are not too familiar with macro tracking, logging of foods into MyFitnessPal and all of that, and secondly a lot of you guys find that the numbers can be quite triggering or too meticulous. So here are my top tips that don't involve tracking that can still kickstart you on your journey. I will say though, having worked with so many girls and just obviously, you know, logic wise, it is a lot easier to hit your goals if you are tracking your macros. If you think about it in terms of, say, finances wise, if you are trying to save up or just manage your spending better, the first thing you would do is actually track your spending, right? See where you are spending your money, where you're earning your money, and looking at that balance between money going in and out. And essentially you can think of your macros in a similar way. So, you know, macros coming in versus calories out. Essentially the result of that is going to be you and your progress towards either, you know, say maybe bulking, gaining weight, or your weight loss journey. So I am going to say that tracking does make things 10 times easier because you literally have control over what is coming in and out of your body. But you know, if you are at the start of your journey and you are just looking for some simple tips, simple things that you can kind of implement into your daily routine to kickstart your journey, then you're in the right place. So first tip is drinking a glass of water before and after or during each meal. Why? Well, it simply fills up your stomach and it makes you feel a lot more full and a lot more satisfied. Therefore, this means that if you were to then reduce your portion sizes, which is where I would start off from, if you're not wanting to track but you're wanting to be in that calorie deficit, taking your sample meals, the meals that you usually would have, and just reducing your portion sizes a little bit. When you do so by having water with each meal before and after, it just makes sure that you're not going to be feeling too, you know, unsatisfied in terms of stomach fullness, because water is obviously going to fill up your stomach with a lot more volume there. Another tip, if you are reducing your portion sizes and you want to make sure that, you know, you still are feeling quite full during the day, is essentially fasting in the morning. So pushing that first meal back a little bit. And what I have been doing, actually, I have been having my fat burner here from EHP Labs, and basically it is a thermogenic fat burner. It's completely natural, it has caffeine in it and other ingredients that pretty much suppress your appetite, so it's great fasted in the morning, and essentially it just enables me to push back my first meal without getting too hungry in the morning. Plus it tastes nice and it makes sure that I am drinking in the morning. So that is my first tip. Now tip number 2 is making sure you are having a good portion of vegetables or a salad with each meal. Vegetables are a great way to just add a lot more volume into meals. So this is again going to make you feel so much fuller, but because they aren't very calorie dense, it just means you can have a lot of vegetables, fill your stomach up, fill your plate up without intaking too many extra calories for the volume you are having. This again just makes you feel fuller, it makes you feel more satisfied, because when you are looking at a plate of food that's rather large, mentally you feel like you are eating a lot, right? So yeah, it just helps a lot when you are trying to diet. Now tip number 3 is eliminating distractions. So how many of you guys eat in front of your laptops or the TV, or you know, you're busy scrolling through social media and then you finish your meal and you actually haven't mentally even registered that you have had a proper meal, and you know, it's been probably like 2 minutes and you're like, holy crap, my meal is gone. It's so easy for us to consume a large amount of food without even even realizing. So it's so important that, you know, when we are eating, we are sitting down, being mindful and actually being conscious of the food that is going in our mouth, chewing properly and swallowing. I know it sounds like I'm literally telling you how to chew your food, and it's like, you know, we are adults now, we should know how to eat properly, but you'd be surprised. Like, I even do this myself. Sometimes I'm in front of my laptop, busy working away, shoving food down my mouth, and, you know, it's been 2 minutes and I'm like, did I just eat all my food? Like, where did it all go? And I'm like, oh, I finished my food, I finished my meal, and I'm completely not satisfied because mentally I have not even enjoyed my meal and I don't even know what I ate. So very important, especially if you are trying to lose weight or you're trying to diet and you're trying to be satisfied from your meals and not feel like you constantly need more food, both mentally as well and physically. Is to actually just slow down and actually, you know, give yourself time to eat. Like, sit down without distractions and just be there and be mindful with your food. Now, tip number 4 is looking at your activity levels. So again, you know, it is really just a matter of calories in versus calories out. And if you are not tracking, that is completely fine, but you can just consciously do more steps and move your body more. So set yourself a step target. You know, if you know that you pretty much don't walk around much, you're always sat in front of your computer, you know, you're working, say, a desk job, the easiest way to just increase your calorie expenditure is just setting yourself a step goal. So you can start small. If you barely move already, maybe that's 6 to 7K steps, setting up a morning routine where you are going out for a walk first thing in the morning, 10 to 15 minutes. This is something I preach to all my clients because I really do think it just sets you up for success during the day. Like, if you can go outside, move your body, get a breath of fresh air in, clear your mind first thing in the morning, it really just does set you up for a really productive day. That's how I feel. And I feel like, you know, at least that's what I believe, because I really do think your morning routine is so important with both your mindset, but also just, you know, your energy levels during the day. Because if you don't have a morning routine and you don't give yourself enough time to just move your body first thing in the morning, and you wake up in a stress state and you're like, holy crap, I have 5 minutes before work starts, my manager's gonna call me at 9 a.m, I need to sit down before, you know, in front of Zoom in 5 minutes time, you know, that is not the best state to be waking up in. So yeah, I really do think that, you know, getting that morning walk in, really having a step goal is going to help you so much in terms of just, you know, naturally expending more energy and actually just being more active. Like, being active is a good thing, guys, not just from a weight loss perspective. Like, it is so important you are moving your body and that you do have kind of a step goal to be accountable to. And now tip number 5 is switching to black coffee or just reducing the amount of milk you are using in your coffees. This also goes with like syrups, sugar, cream that you may be having with your coffee. A lot of us do underestimate the amount of calories that can be racked up from, like, you know, your frappe or your latte from Starbucks or your regular coffee shop. You would be literally looking at around like 300 to 400 extra calories at least from like a frappe or something that, you know, you may be getting on a daily basis without even thinking. And because it's liquid calories, it's a drink, you don't really, like, many of you guys probably don't register just how many calories there are. And, you know, again, it doesn't feel like you're having a proper meal, so you may, you know, sit down for an extra meal with a frappe, and that frappe already is like the calories equivalent to a proper meal that you're having. So just being a bit more aware of, you know, your calorie intake in terms of what you are having and the options you're making each day. So if you are someone who, you know, loves your Starbucks order, loves your frappe or your latte, or, you know, your, I don't know, caramel frappe with cream, whatever fancy order you're getting, just cut down on it. Like, maybe instead of having one every day, having one every 2 days. That's going to be a massive change in terms of, you know, your calorie intake across the week. Or just switching to homemade coffees if you do like having milk in your coffee, using a little bit less, using almond milk instead of full fat milk. Like, a lot of small things you can do to not essentially, you know, completely just take out your favorite sort of coffee, but just to make small changes that can really pull down the calories from your liquid drinks. And look, like, if you were to save just 300 calories from those drinks you were having each day from your coffees, that would be 2,100 calories across a whole week, right? Across 7 days. And that is a substantial amount just from your liquid calories. So really just looking at the small things you are doing day by day, because that does add up. Now, the next tip is making sure you are having adequate amounts of protein, especially with each meal. So protein does take a lot longer for your body to digest. It leaves you feeling fuller for longer as well. So with each meal, make sure you are having a serving of protein, whether that's, meat or a vegan substitute. Doesn't matter, as long as you are having a stable source of protein. And I think sometimes a lot of us aren't conscious with the meals that we are having. So we'll sit down for a meal and there literally will be no protein source, and we think it's a substantial meal and we wonder why we're hungry afterwards. So some people, when they think of dieting, they're like, oh, I'm just gonna stick to leafy greens, just a plain salad. But it's like, make sure that if you are having a salad, you are having a staple source of protein, just to make sure you are staying fuller for longer. And because protein is important for you, it is the building block of your muscles. So regardless of you dieting or not, if you want to retain your muscle mass and if you are still wanting to perform well at the gym and be recovering, it's so important you are intaking enough protein. Now, the next tip is portioning out your snacks. So just because you are dieting or you're trying to lose weight or reduce your calorie intake, it does not mean you have to take out all your snacks, but it is about just being a bit more mindful. So it is so easy to sit there with a bag of crisps and just go through the whole thing without even realizing, because you're just kind of nibbling here and there, and then after an hour it's completely gone. Probably won't last an hour if you're like me. So portioning out, like literally, if you're going to buy a massive bag, take little Ziploc bags and just portion out how much you realistically will need to keep you satisfied. You don't need a whole bag of crisps, but maybe it's just a handful and that will be enough. So really making sure that you are being a bit more conscious of the portion sizes of your snacks and how many snacks you are having throughout the day. In most cases is we aren't actually hungry for snacks, but rather it's just peckishness. It's more mental boredom. If you are working from your computer, studying, it is so easy for our minds to kind of wander and we just want to move our mouths and eat something, which is completely fine. But again, it's just being aware of that and being aware of how much you are having. So for example, you can have like 2-3 biscuits, but it doesn't mean you have to sit down next to a whole packet of biscuits, because more likely than not, if you just have an open packet of biscuits sitting there, you're probably going to finish all of it. So now onto the topic of snacks. This brings me to my next tip, which is do not restrict, okay? Don't just start cutting out all the foods you really do love. If you are someone who has a sweet tooth, who loves your chocolate, don't think that just to lose weight you have to remove chocolate, okay? Like I hear this so often, so many girls that I am currently working with now, before they started working with me, they were like, I thought I had to cut out chocolates, like my diet wasn't great because I really loved crisps. No, like you can still have those foods. It's just about balance and it's about portion control, okay? It's about how much you are having, not the actual food you're having, okay? So yes, if you were to have a whole bar of chocolate, those calories are going to add up and they're probably not going to leave you feeling very full, because around 100 grams of chocolate is around like 500 calories, right? And if you look at 100 grams of chocolate, it's just it's not much in terms of volume wise, but you're going to rack up 500 extra calories compared to say a whole bowl of rice, salad and protein, which will also be 500 calories perhaps, but it's going to be a massive kind of portion, right? So it's not about essentially restricting the foods you love, but rather being aware again of the quantity you're having and making sure that you are still enjoying the foods you are having throughout your dieting phase, because that's going to prevent you from firstly binging. It's going to make you consistent because it's something that you can see as sustainable, right? Like if I were to tell you that you could not have your favorite foods for the rest of your life, you would be like, well, that's not going to be a very enjoyable life. So if you're not enjoying something, you're not going to be able to sustain it. But if I were to tell you, hey, look, you can't have a full bar of chocolate, maybe, 100, 200 grams of chocolate every single day, but you can have 20 grams of chocolate every day. Like every day you can have chocolate. You'd be like, sweet, sign me up, because I can still stay in the best shape of my life. I can feel good. I can eat the foods I love in moderation. Like, yeah, that is sustainable. That is something I can see myself doing for the rest of my life. So it is important to keep that in mind. Like, make sure you are still enjoying the foods you love, and having that 80-20 balance, which is so important. Now, the next tip is something that I think a lot of us can kind of succumb to, which is attaching our emotions to the scale, right? And then we end up self-sabotaging. So detach yourself away from that number, okay? Like, there are so many things that measure your progress and indicate progress that the scales simply cannot measure. Firstly, your muscle mass is going to weigh so much than fat, okay? So if you've just started exercising and you are resistance training, you will be building muscle, and when you are building muscle and losing fat, your weight may just fluctuate and actually stay the same. It may even bump up a little bit, but that doesn't mean you're not making progress, okay? So it's so important that you are keeping everything in mind. So take a step back away from just the number and look at all these other things that really do matter. Firstly, how do your clothes fit? Do they fit better? How do you feel? Do you feel more energized? Do you feel fitter? Do you feel healthier? Do you feel stronger? Because if you are getting stronger at the gym, you are building muscle. You simply cannot be not building muscle and staying the same, but getting heaps stronger. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? You need more muscle to be stronger. Thirdly, how do your check-in photos look? So if you are taking photos weekly, which is something I do suggest, because again, it is so much better and easier to track progress visually than just focusing on the scale, because so many things do affect the number. So yeah, how are your check-in photos looking? Like, do you look leaner? Do you look better? Do you like the way you look now compared to, maybe 2-3 check-ins before? Like, how are you looking visually? Because again, that is so important. So yeah, so many different things to look at regarding, your progress that is not determined by the scale. And the last thing you want to do is to be so attached to the scale that if one week your weight fluctuates or it bumps up, you're like, oh, F this, it's not working, my diet's not working, why am I doing my cardio, why am I being in deficit and being hungry if nothing is working, fuck this, and I'm just gonna go and F my diet. That is what happens to a lot of people, right? We self-sabotage and we let that one number, that scale, if you think about it, it's literally just a little equipment, like some piece of metal on the ground that weighs you. If you're going to let that affect how consistent you are and whether you stay on track and whether you keep going, well then yeah, you probably won't reach your goals, because the weight will always fluctuate, okay? There will be a time during your journey where it bumps up, probably more than once. And if that is enough to get you quitting, well then you really need to think about how sustainable your mindset is towards your goals, because you need to be able to take a step back away from the number and not let the initial outcome or your weigh-in affect how consistent you are and how dedicated you are towards this process. And finally, now that we have touched on resistance training as well, naturally, I'm going to cover this. Really focus on how you are performing at the gym. Really get into resistance training. Like, look, I know that so many people are like, oh, I need to do more cardio if I want to lose weight. Yes, cardio helps you to be in that calorie deficit. However, resistance training is going to be your best friend in the long term. Because see, the more muscle you hold in terms of muscle percentage compared to body fat, the more calories you are going to burn just sitting there. Like, you could have two versions of me standing here. One could have more muscle, the other one could have less muscle. The one with more muscle is going to be burning way more calories just to maintain their body compared to the version of me that has less muscle, okay? So over time, like, if you are wanting to essentially have a high maintenance and be able to stay in a leaner shape all year round at, the same amount of calories, you would want to be essentially holding more muscle. So, if you think about this as a long-term goal and you want to be setting yourself up for success in the long term, you really do have to see resistance training as your best friend, and rather cardio as just an additional tool to bring you into a bigger calorie deficit. And plus, an additional bonus of resistance training is that it makes you feel like a freaking boss. Like, you are getting stronger, you are throwing weights around. It's so empowering. It's really just an additional bonus to the fact that you are going to be able to maintain, high maintenance calories. Like, isn't that the goal? Eat as much as I can and still stay in shape. Those are my top 10 tips in terms of how you can make your weight loss journey a bit easier, without tracking calories too meticulously. But obviously, as I did say at the start of this video, if you are really wanting to make long-term substantial progress, it is kind of important that you are taking track of your calories, because as I said, like with finances, if you are wanting to save money, it's kind of important that you are tracking, where your money's going. So similar thing, but obviously it is not a make or break. It's not the fact that if you can't track your calories, or you don't want to, you're never going to make progress, right? Like, there are still a lot of things that you can put in place into your daily life that is going to naturally pull you into a calorie deficit. However, if you have been doing this for a while now, obviously as you go through a dieting phase, you are going to have to adjust your calories because your maintenance will be dropping. And that is when, you know, tracking kind of does help, because if you've already implemented all of this, it's a bit hard to know exactly how much, you know, less food you need or how much more kind of cardio you do need to bring you into your new deficit if you aren't tracking. So what I would suggest to those who say don't want to track or be focused on the macros or the numbers, because I do understand that for some people it can be quite triggering to see those numbers, is to work with someone, say a coach, who can just provide you a meal plan or provide you a guide of what to eat, so that you don't have to think about the numbers and all you have to do is just implement. Like, they just tell you eat this amount of this, I don't know, this amount of chicken, this amount of rice, and you just go ahead and do so. So that is always an option as well, and a meal plan does work very well for those who just don't want to think about numbers but obviously still want to be making insane progress. That is always an option. But yeah, other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was helpful, and if you did enjoy it, please make sure to give this video a like, because it really does support my channel. Give me a subscribe if you are new here, and hit the bell button so you don't miss another video, and have a lovely rest of your night or day wherever you are in the world. This talking has made me super thirsty. If you guys haven't connected with me yet over on Instagram, I do post a lot more regularly over on Instagram, which is cz.fit. So yeah, would love to connect with you guys there. And other than that, I will see you guys very soon. Bye!